is Isabel Arthur Long. I'm a project environmental scientist with Ty and Bond. Also with me in the room tonight are Beth Wilson from the Amherst Department of Public Works, Amber Bowles, from a professional engineer with Ty and Bond and the project manager for this project, and also Carlene Eaton, another environmental scientist from Ty and Bond. Tonight we'll be talking through the proposed Atkins Reservoir Sediment Basins Dredging project. Please be aware this presentation is going to be recorded and uploaded to the project webpage so that anyone who wasn't able to make it here tonight will be able to learn about the project as well. So the Atkins Reservoir, I need to be closer to the computer maybe to use this. Carly, if you could just advance the slides for me as we go. Thank you. The Atkins Reservoir sedimentation basins are located directly southeast of Atkins Reservoir in Shutesbury, near the Amherst town line. Let's see if I can get that other laser. The laser pointer won't show up on the recorded version, so we'll just describe things well for you. So just a bit of background about the project, if you'll go to the next slide. The Atkins Reservoir supplies approximately 1/3 of Amherst drinking water, so it's a critical water supply for the town. The reservoir was constructed in the 1930s, along with a diversion channel that diverts water from Nurse Brook and Dean Brook into Atkins Reservoir as a water source. At the time of construction, 3 basins were also constructed along that channel to capture sediment and allow it to settle before water enters the reservoir. And historical records, as well as chemical data from the sediment, indicates that the basins have been dredged at least once since their construction in the 1930s. So at present, all 3 basins are nearing their capacity, which limits their ability to remove sediment from surface water and serve their intended purpose. In addition, during high flow events, if water were allowed through that diversion channel, it would actually instead pick up sediment that has accumulated in the basins and transport it directly into the reservoir, which means the basins in their current condition impair water quality instead of improving it during high flow conditions. And this image just shows us a sketch from the time of construction, showing those 3 basins entering the reservoir on the left side of the image. Next slide, please. Thank you. You'll see another image here of the sequence of basins and the diversion channel entering the reservoir. So the scope of this project is to dredge all 3 sediment basins to restore their original capacity. The site will be accessed via Cushman Road using existing paths and trails to the extent possible to minimize the amount of tree clearing required for the project. All of the material dredged from the basins will be left to dewater on site and then transported to the retired South Amherst landfill, where it'll be used as cover. In terms of schedule, we're currently in the design and permitting phase. During the spring and summer of 2025, we'll be selecting a contractor this fall and winter, and then construction is expected to start in fall next year in 2026. So just a couple of pictures of existing conditions. These are 2 water control structures that are located upstream of the sediment basins, and these are routinely used by the Department of Public Works to control the amount of water flowing into that channel and into the basins. Some pictures of 2 of the existing basins. On that right-hand picture especially, you can see that sediment has accumulated to the extent that it's actually supporting the growth of vegetation within that basin. That should just be space for water and sediment to settle. So this slide has a lot going on. It's a image of existing conditions on the project site, as well as our proposed access and site preparation plan. So the limit of work is shown outlined in red, and the basins and channel, diversion channel, are outlined in blue, sort of going through the center of that limit of work. Just to orient you to the site, and if my assistant here could use the cursor as I go to show where I'm talking about, the Atkins Reservoir is located in the top left of the image, and the water is flowing from the bottom right corner of the screen up into the reservoir through those three basins and that channel. There are cofferdams, which are structures that are used to block the movement of sediment and water, located at the outlet of every one of the basins to make sure they're isolated and we don't have sediment flowing from one basin into the other during construction. And also a turbidity curtain right at the outlet of the channel into the Atkins Reservoir to prevent sediment from entering the reservoir itself. You can also see erosion control barriers set up along the limit of work to make sure that any soil that's disturbed during construction or access doesn't migrate from that area and end up in a wetland, for example. The extent of the cleared areas is shown these sort of grayed out areas and X's through trees, primarily down in that area along the southern, southwestern portion of the limit of work, where we'll need to do some tree clearing for site access. And finally, there are 3 dewatering areas where sediment will be piled to allow it to drain naturally before being transported off-site. This image is our proposed conditions plan. So you'll see that limit of work outlined in red again, and the channel and basin system outlined in blue. The checkered areas are going to be restored by applying a native seed mix and also replanting trees. The areas shown as stripes will be restored with seed mix only, so that future maintenance doesn't require so much tree clearing next time the basins need to be dredged. And those solid gray areas are existing pathways that will be restored and maintained as paths, so there won't be any change in their condition. To give you a image of some of the control measures, best management practices that will be utilized. These are a few examples. On the top left, you have an example of a cofferdam. This may not be exactly what the cofferdams at the site look like, but they're generally obstructions that create a wall to prevent water and sediment from moving from one place to another. On the top right, we have compost filter tubes, which are erosion control measures. You might see them around at other construction sites very frequently, and they stop sediment from migrating beyond the limits of the project site. And they also serve as an indication to the contractors while they're working that that's the boundary beyond which they should not be working. On the bottom there is an example of the turbidity curtain. We're not anticipating nearly this much turbidity from accumulating as a result of the project, given the other controls we have in place. But you can see here how much turbidity in that brown water is being stopped from entering this water body. So at this point, I will open the floor for questions and discussion. We do not have anyone watching live tonight, so we're not anticipating having any questions. But if you do have any questions and you're watching this online, recorded on the website, There's contact information on that webpage for who you can write to get all of your questions answered. We'd be happy to provide you with any information that you'd like. Thank you.